Welcome to this week's edition of the Mike Brey Show. I'm your host, Tony Simeone, joined by the head basketball coach, Mike Brey. 22 seasons at the helm of this program. When you reflect on your career here at Notre Dame, what comes to mind?
I've been spoiled, Tony, and it's great to work with you, my man. Here we go. To be at this very special university for 22 years and to have about 63 young men that have gone through that are like sons to me, it's exciting. I'm honored to be the leader of the basketball program here, and I'm excited about the group that we have currently and who they can become.
I'll congratulate you too. You outlasted Jack Nolan on Inside Notre Dame men's basketball. We're going to get into the details of the win over Kentucky, but I just got to ask you, this seemed like a game you guys really needed to have, and you got it done at home. What was your takeaway from the win over Kentucky?
Well, Tony, we were not pleased with our effort and our energy in Boston against a Boston College team. Give them credit. They played very well. And we had a kind of a week to reflect and work on some things and coach our guys. I give a lot of credit to our leadership. Kind of circle in the wagons kind of week and a circle in the wagons kind of night. But it was special to beat a really good team in that atmosphere that brings back so many memories.
Coming up next, it's the Game Breakdown segment where we look back at all the men's basketball action. This is the Mike Brey Show presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for the game breakdown, and we're going to break down the first month of the season, Coach. Everything up until Kentucky, which we'll get to in the next segment. Let's start with CSUN at home, the opener. The first thing I want to ask is just, and we've talked about it throughout the year on the radio, but this is the first time you got to have fans back in the stands for almost 2 years. That home opener against CSUN, what did it mean to have your fans back?
You know, to come out and see people in the building and hear some cheers and hear some energy for the starting lineup was fabulous. We missed that. It was just so different last season. So to have that was energizing.
The freshman Blake Wesley had a great premier experience and performance. 21 points, 7 of 10 shooting. Did you think he'd be that good that early in the season?
I didn't know if he'd come out in his first college game and do what he did, but he has shown signs, even starting, Tony, back in June in summer school, that he's got a chance to be very special. The neat thing about him, he plays the right way, he's unselfish, and he's got a great group of older teammates that know they need him and are bringing him along.
In the second home game, let's talk about one of those older teammates, a guy that's been really experienced for you, Nate Leshesky. In that game, he had 16 rebounds against High Point, and I think that was a sign of things to come. He's rebounded the ball really well for you guys. What have you seen from Nate so far this year?
You know, I think the first thing is leading. You know, he has been a major voice now as a senior and a leader, and we've told him to kind of just concentrate on being great on both backboards, and I think he's second or third or fourth in the ACC in rebounding, and he sets a tone for us. His scoring's going to come. He picks his spots, but if he can rebound the way he's rebounding, we've got a chance every night.
Let's talk about the trip to Las Vegas. The Maui Invitational, of course, was moved to Las Vegas because of COVID and everything going on. And that first game against St. Mary's, I thought it was a really good basketball game. I know you guys didn't come out on the right side. It was a close game down the stretch. What did you learn from that game? We'll get to Kentucky later, but it seemed like maybe what you went through against St. Mary's prepared you for the Kentucky late game.
Well, there was no question it was heartbreaking. We played a very good team in St. Mary's, probably a little bit more advanced than us at this point, played together a little bit longer, and we just couldn't get a key defensive stop at a time. And I thought we were a little frazzled and nervous in our late game execution. And it cost us. And you know, a lot of times when you lose that way early, it takes a while to kind of get your confidence and a little bit of your swagger back. And I thought since then we were kind of in that mode, trying to find ourselves.
Yeah, you mentioned that Texas A&M. I thought the first 25 minutes of that game, the last game in Vegas, was maybe your best 25-minute stretch of the season thus far. Third game in 3 days. Did you get the sense like you maybe just ran a little bit out of gas at the end of that one?
We probably were a little bit tired, but I think you have to give credit to Texas A&M. We could not handle their pressure. We turned the ball over 18 times. We prided ourselves here in our program, Tony, of taking care of the basketball, and that was just the exact opposite. And they jumped on us, and we just couldn't finish. And I thought we hung our head a little bit when things didn't go well, something that we've tried to work out of up until the Kentucky game.
You know, we've talked about it a lot, and I'll just mention now, the schedule came at you fast and furious because right after that, you're in the ACC Big Ten Challenge. Illinois, not only a great team, but also a great environment. That was a Monday night, high-profile affair. Kofi Coburn, obviously, such a load. What'd you learn in that game? I know you had some good performances from Blake and Dane Goodwin, but what was your takeaway from the game against Illinois?
Well, I think our biggest thing was, our ability to stick our nose in there and compete in battle, and I thought we did that, especially in the second half. You're right. Our offense kind of turned to Blake Wesley trying to create for us as we're learning how to use him more effectively. But I thought we stuck our nose in there, but we got it to two possessions, a 5-point game. And I don't think we really understood that's when you really have to defend. That's when you really have to rebound. So, some good stuff, but still really searching for 40 minutes.
Let me just ask you about one guy in particular, and we'll get to him in the Kentucky breakdown as well, but Dane Goodwin has been in double figures every game for you. He's been a guy that I think in the first 3 years of his career, maybe a little peak and valley, he's been steady this year. What have you liked from Dane?
He has been a rock, Tony. I'm really impressed with him, his leadership, his coming in and knowing, I'm a 4-year guy now. I've played a lot of basketball. I'm steady. This is what I get. I think he's set a great tone for us. He's improved defensively. He always was a quiet guy his first couple years. He's talking more, and he's respected, so we need his voice.
Let me ask you about Boston College. I think of all the games on the schedule, this is the first one that surprised me. That it didn't seem like the compete level was there. It didn't seem like a performance from your team where you could really take away a whole lot of positives. So my question is, what did you take away from that? And it allowed you to get the win against Kentucky.
Well, extremely disappointed in us sticking our nose in there and battling. You got to give Boston College credit. I thought they played great and really defended us. But we were all over the place. And, we weren't great from a coaching standpoint. We weren't great from a leadership standpoint. And so we had some real things to address for 1 week before we played again.
All right, we filibustered enough. When we come back, we will get a chance to break down the win over number 10 Kentucky on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. You got the win over number 10 Kentucky. I just want to ask, though, we talked about it in the last segment. Coming off the game against Boston College, what was the message to the team? You had the long 8-day layoff, but how did you get them ready for what was obviously a highly anticipated game?
It was a challenging manhood kind of week. We have great kids, fabulous kids. And when you challenge them and challenge the leadership, challenge the captains, that is just unacceptable in Boston. The way we competed, or lack thereof, so to speak. And again, I give some credit to this group. They've been around a little bit. They did not feel good about Boston, so we had a great atmosphere to teach in. We made some basketball adjustments too, X and O wise, to help us a little bit more offensively, and I thought we did a good job carrying it over. We stuck our nose in there defensively, and we knew we cannot win or even be close if we don't rebound the ball. And I was very pleased with how we rebounded as a team.
Yeah, you out-rebounded the best rebounding team in the country. I want to talk about one of the leaders that got you off to a great start. Cormac Ryan gave you 7 of the first 10 points, but you could just see him. He was exuding energy. How big was that start for him to get your team going?
Well, I think it was really important. I don't think he has not played as well as he would like, and we know he's a really good player for us. I thought he gave us a confidence, and his defense throughout the game, certainly that last play, wall up, was key. He guarded the whole game, and he was mature enough to know, I scored 7 to get us started, but I don't need to force things, and we'll just take what so I really have a lot of respect for how he bounced back, because he had a tough one in Boston.
We'll get a chance to break down that defensive possession in Irish Intel later. Another player we haven't talked about yet who had his best offensive game of the year was Trey Wirtz. I thought he hit some timely threes for you. He initiates the offense really well. How big was it to get a performance from him in this game?
I think he's coming. He's just coming. He's more confident. Last year we got him eligible on a wacky ruling. I don't think he was really completely ready to play mentally, but he did okay for us, Now he's had a year to really understand it. He's really gifted. He's got a nice tempo. He's got a feel for the game, makes big shots, And I think the area where he's really grown is defending and being physical in the paint and blocking out and rebounding, and he did that. But he's a key for us.
Another player you got back in this one. For the first time all season in the previous 2 games, Paul Atkinson Jr. was not in double figures. He seemed like he was back more comfortable against a really talented player in Oscar Shibwe. On both sides of the floor, he gave you a great performance.
He did. I think there's been an adjustment period for Paul coming from the Ivy League, playing against these big physical bodies. And my God, with our schedule, have I thrown him a bevy of big physical dudes, only All-American big guys.
Yeah.
He's probably looking at me like, Coach, what's up? But I loved his demeanor in that atmosphere and battling and smart offensively and movement, with the ball, handling the basketball for us and rebounding the ball. So I think there's an adjustment period that he is really going through, but I think he took a big step against Kentucky.
It was 30-28 at halftime. I think at that point, when you're looking around the building, it seemed like, okay, this is going to be a close game. In fact, nobody led by more than 5 in this contest. So I just want to know, in the locker room, what was the message like? What was the discussion like when you knew it was going to be a dogfight?
Well, we talked about playing 4-minute periods to the media timeouts. Let's play 4 minutes and then talk about where we're at. Let's play 4 minutes, then we'll get to halftime. And I thought our group did a good job of that. You're right. We never let him get too far away from us. And we hung in there, and we had some tough offensive possessions, but it didn't affect us defensively. I thought our transition defense on Wheeler was fabulous. We got back, and we didn't give up really any easy buckets. So there was, you get to halftime, and now you're starting to believe a little bit more, and you feel it's going to be game situations. But I thought segmenting the game for us, 4 minutes, now let's talk where we're at. 4 minutes, let's talk where we're at, is good for this group.
I want to kind of go step by step here at the end. It was 61-56. You had a 5-point lead late, about 3.5 minutes to play. They came on back-to-back possessions. They get the and one, and then the Hail Mary 3 from Grady, and you call timeout. So you've mentioned, tell me what was going through your head when Grady put in the Hail Mary, but then also how you settled the team down and got them to refocus.
Well, you're right. I mean, I'm looking and I'm going, we're up 5. I didn't think we were going to escape them by more than 5. But here it comes. And when Grady throws a 3 in, of course, there's a little bit of me like, come on now. I mean, I think we've been better defensively to deserve that kind of karma. There is some karma in this game. I thought we responded coming out of the timeout. We posted Dane Goodwin. Yeah. We came back and we posted him, which is something we like to do. He at least was able to tie the game. And that's where I think this group took a big step, where they took a big punch, went down 1, and were able to be tough enough to grind it out, dig it out, defend it out. No question our home crowd and our students down there in the end zone helped us believe defensively when we had them behind us.
So then you mentioned the free throw from Dane ties the game. They had a 3 that goes about halfway around the world and comes out. On the other end of the floor, and I want to ask about what Blake Wesley said after the game. He made a turnover on a pass he was trying to get to Nate Leshesky. He said something about Dane Goodwin in the locker room gives a power clap to try to move on. So what did that tell you that a freshman's looking up to a senior to move on because he eventually made the game winner after a turnover?
Yeah, and my whole body language was he was trying to make a play, he threw it away, and we're fine. Yeah. We're still in great shape. Don't hang your head. Go back and guard again. And that's where I think we've grown. We went back after a disappointing play and we're able to dig in and defend. Then that next possession, we didn't really have him initiate. Trey kind of initiated, and we said, hey, at low clock, we can come back to Blake and let him go. And for him to have the presence and frame of mind and confidence to move on from a turnover and go right to 10, 12 feet and rise up. And when he rose up, it was like, this is going in. He's going up so confidently. So a lot of growth, but yeah, our power clap is our way of getting on to the next play. Tough luck, move on, bounce back, next play.
You talked about the defense. I think what's been overshadowed with the great shot from Wesley is the way you guys defended in transition there with 11 seconds left. We'll look at it in Irish Intel later, but you mentioned Cormac Ryan. Blake Wesley kind of dove down on the ball. What did it tell you about your team that without a timeout, they were able to get back and get the stop to win the game?
Well, I think to have the presence of mind to get back and body up, Cormac Ryan rode him beautifully to a really tough shot, did not foul. Blake gave him a little bit of pressure, and Paul's there to secure the rebound. So to get on to the next play and not celebrate and know that that clock stops under a minute, and here they come right back down the court on us. Again, I thought our poise, our mental toughness, and our presence of mind the last 4 minutes really grew, and I hope we found a little bit of an identity in crunch time, which we were searching for through the first 7 games.
The last one I have for you is just when you saw the students come on the floor, you've mentioned the environment. It's been so long since you've been able to have something like this. Just what did it feel like to be down there?
I mean, they're piling down. I shake Coach Calipari's hand, and I'm thinking to myself, my God, we missed this, and we needed this, and our students needed this. And I had more text messages and comments about the atmosphere.
Yeah.
You know, the game was great, and Blake did this, and we did that, but it was like, wow, the Jack was alive again, and you couldn't ask for a better night. It was, choreographed. The local guy hits the shot. We stormed the court. I actually emailed the students. I said, I'll see you against Clemson. I'll see you at Clemson, 9:00. We need you. Fun night. And again, hopefully a confidence builder for us, Tony.
That does it for this week's game breakdown. When we come back, we'll have this week's installment of Irish Intel on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time for Irish Intel, where we go inside the play. Coach, I want to take you to late in the game against Kentucky. You're down by 1, baseline inbound set that leads to a nice basket. Talk me through this one.
Well, this is just a great read, off of this. And for Cormac to then probe and find. I thought Cormac's drives were really under control, and Paul is rolling. We got the floor spread here, and Cormac does a great job of jump stopping and not getting in the air and laying that off right there. Just really, really poised by Cormac. Love his tempo, Paul rolling, and a big-time finish, and a key bucket, as you can see, for us to take the lead.
Okay, Coach, so as we go inside this one here, now you have the 1-point lead. It's a few seconds later. Another great inbound set leads to an easy basket.
We have done so much for Dane Goodwin on out of bounds, and we've gotten stuff that, scouting-wise, everyone's very, very aware of him. Look at the blue shirts, watching to see what is Dane Goodwin going to do here. And how about the presence of mind of this freshman reading his opponent in Blake Wesley, and Trey just really waits, and we get a easy bucket, to give us a 3-point lead right there. Just a real good read, but everyone's worried about Dane Goodwin on our out-of-bounds unders, and that's a good thing. There he was a decoy, and we get a really great bucket here. So impressed with our freshman reading his man right there. His head was turned, Wheeler's head is turned, Trey waits, he doesn't force anything. A lot of people watching Dane Goodwin, and we get that right there. I mean, just really basketball IQ that I'm very impressed with.
Okay, Coach, now you got a 3-point lead. Again, not off an inbound set. This is good half-court action, though. It gets Dane Goodwin open on a backdoor cut. Just talk me through your set here.
Well, we're spaced out here. We're playing basketball, but Cormac really reads it and does a great job. I thought his drives were so under control the other night. Instead of the dribble handoff right here, he turns the corner. And his man thought, well, that's going to be a dribble handoff. Our spacing's good over here with Wirtz and Goodwin. Paul lifts a little bit, Atkinson, to clear it, and Dane Goodwin feel for the game, moving without the ball. A little bit like we saw Blake Wesley on the out of bounds. Read your man, feel. Cormac calmly picks his dribble up, and we get an easy one right there. Just great execution, playing basketball with good principles.
You pointed something out. I want to follow up on this. You pointed out Paul, and that, to me, that's all the basketball IQ coming together here. It seemed like Paul's instinct to move towards the free throw line is really what opens that up in the end.
He really lifted. He does a good job of coming up. He's so good feeling the game, and he gets great spacing right there. But I love Dane reading his man. His man's back is turned, a little bit like on the out-of-bounds play with Blake, and great cut. I thought Dane Goodwin's movement without the ball was fabulous. Cormac's calm presence of mind to jump stop and just deliver the ball. Spacing with Trey Wirtz, spacing with Blake Wesley opens the floor up. Just playing basketball the right way and being unselfish.
That does it for this week's edition of Irish Intel. When we come back, we'll have Irishography on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. So, Paul, you joined Notre Dame this year. You sat out last year after the Ivy League was canceled. I just want to know, from your standpoint, what was the process like as you tried to figure out where you'd play your final year of basketball in a 10 school?
Yeah, it was difficult. At first when the season got canceled by the Ivy League, it was definitely like a shock to. It wasn't much of a shock. It was kind of something that you were kind of prepared for, but it still hurt when it happened. But coming down to the schools, it's just putting my name to the portal. When I talked to my coach at Yale, it was like really helpful with me in that process. And then just hearing out a bunch of different schools and talking to them. Then I got into a couple Zoom calls, one with Notre Dame and a bunch of other schools like Kansas and North Carolina State. So got a bunch of other Zoom calls, but I kind of liked the coaching staff at Notre Dame, and I knew a couple players coming in. I knew Cormac through his brother who went to Yale, and I knew Nate through his mom who works with my stepmom. So I knew a couple of the connections there, and then I got to talking with some of the players on the team and just the Zooms. And I always liked the campus, and I heard it was like pretty similar in Yale in some regards, so I kind of wanted to check it out.
So how has the first semester gone? Now that you have come here and you've been with the coaching staff and you've been with the players firsthand, how's it lived up to the hype?
Yeah, I think so. It's a different school than Yale. It's a thing I'm still realizing every day. It's a lot different than Yale in a lot of ways, but it's like similar. I think I've met a lot of people here that I really enjoyed. There's a lot of people in my master's program that have been really cool. The teammates have been awesome since I've gotten here, and the coaching staff has just been nothing but great. So I think I'm really enjoying school right now.
You guys are a month into the season. One thing that stuck out to me, it's a really veteran group. So you come in as a veteran, and it's been a learning process, but it seems like you guys have really meshed well together. Mm-hmm. What's the process been like assimilating into the offense and defensive structure of the team?
Yeah, during the summer, it started off there. It was first transition back into basketball, after being out for pretty much a year and a half, not playing contact sport. So it was definitely a transition getting back into playing regularly. But after that, it was just transitioning into a new type of offense they were trying to run. And just playing with the guys a lot. So I think we did that a lot during the summer, and then we came back in the fall and we kept it going.
I want to ask you about the transition to maybe this level of basketball. I don't want to bash the Ivy League. It's a very competitive league. It always has competitive teams in the tournament, but you've faced some amazing bigs, Kofi Coburn, Oscar Shibwe. Yeah. Just what's the adjustment been like to playing against some of these really incredibly talented and bigs that you've had to go up against so far this year?
Yeah, like you said, it's starting off, we've had some really good bigs coming in our building and going into theirs. So it's been a bit of transition playing against some massive dudes. They're 7 foot, 255 plus pounds. So I think the transition's just been a lot more physical. Feeling a little beat up after most games, but it's been really good just to get that experience.
The win against Kentucky that you guys just had, it's one of the most exciting wins that this team's had in the last few years. I'm just curious, having played in it, what was it like to be in that environment in Purcell when you guys got the win?
That was awesome. I've never had a situation where the fans rushed the court like that. So, definitely, having a top 10 team coming to your stadium is awesome. And having our fans out there to support us like that and everybody rushing the floor, it was awesome.
Let me ask you about the last possession. First on the offensive side of the floor, Coach Brey's talked about how the veterans have been, willing to late clock, go to Blake and let him try to create for himself. When you were on the floor and you saw him with the ball, what was going through your head as he made his move?
I was just kind of trying to be in the best position to help him out. I know that Blake he's a really good player. He's going to take a good shot. So I wanted to see kind of just how I could help him get a shot. If I needed to get an offensive rebound, if he was ready for a dish off, just ready to make the next play whenever it was necessary.
And then I think a part of the play that people have maybe overlooked just because the shot was so good was the defensive effort to finish the game. Mm-hmm. You guys played great defense. You actually pulled down the rebound. What were you able to do on that last possession to secure the win?
I was just trying to make sure we didn't make a stupid foul. Cormac had great defense one-on-one, so I didn't want to go over and, accidentally commit a foul or anything in that position. So I wanted to make sure we secured the rebound so they didn't get a, easy putback to send us to overtime. So I think that was the biggest concern, just making sure we got that ball whenever we got to stop and get it out and making free throws, which I thought was going to happen, but it ended up getting a dunk to seal off the game.
One thing I wanted to ask you about, I heard you talk after the game, and you mentioned after BC, this team could have maybe gone into a shell and kind of accepted this might not be our year, and you guys didn't. You responded with the win over Kentucky. So what did it take in the week between BC and Kentucky to have the right mindset to get the win?
I think it was a lot of the coaches just being honest. They weren't happy, and I think nobody on the team was happy, but the coaches coming out and kind of just smacking us in the face, trying to bring us back to reality, and we can do that, we can be that team, we can be a good team this year, and I think that was really helpful. And a lot of the team, we came together in the locker room after a bad practice, during that week, and we just talked to each other about what we wanted to do and what we saw, listening to coaches and being just ready to go when we needed to be.
Last question I have then is, how do you take all the positives from this Kentucky game and bring them through the rest of the season?
I think we use it as somewhere that we know we can be. We can be a top 10 team. We can we can fight against the best of the best. We've got to be able to keep that mindset the whole time and stay inside our structure and our what we want to do on the court.
Paul, appreciate the time. Thanks.
No, thank you.
That does it for this week's Irishography. When we come back, we'll look ahead on the Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com. It's now time to wrap things up with this week's Look Ahead segment. Coach, you're a month into the season. You got the big win. You're now at 4-4. But I'm curious, just what have you learned about your team through the first 4.5 weeks of the year?
You know what, Tony? I think they've learned about themselves. I put a lot on them and our leadership and our captains to even have more ownership. There's no question that when we stick our nose in there and rebound as a team, we've got a chance just about every night. I think we've done some things on the offensive end to simplify and help us a little bit, and it was neat to see us carry it over against Kentucky. But as we've seen, our schedule does not let up. We have played everybody everywhere, and here come the Hoosiers in Indianapolis.
You mentioned the upcoming schedule. There's a palpable sense of energy now that you beat Kentucky. So as a coach, how do you take that energy that you earned in that win over the Wildcats and take it through the rest of the year?
Well, there's no question you want to kind of do it on the road now. You know, our home crowd helped us believe. We played in some road crowds that knocked us on our heels, Illinois, Boston, and then our home crowd helped us. Now, what do we do on the road? Because this will not be a neutral site game, as you and I both know, with the IU fans down there. Can we come together with toughness and togetherness and leadership when we don't have our home crowd? That's our challenge.
Coach, appreciate the time. We'll talk to you next week.
Thanks, Tony.
That does it for this week's Mike Brey Show, presented by TireRack.com.